Hello everyone, welcome to session number 15 on Floor Plan Manager. In yesterday's session, we have discussed about wire model. In order to share the data between different UI building blocks in Floor Plan Manager, we use wire model. In this session, we will start with Business Rules Framework. It's also known as BRF Plus. Before we get into BRF Plus, we need to understand the need of Business Rules Framework. What is a business rules management system, and why would we need business rules as part of our business? So let's take a very practical example from a banking industry for a loan process. So for an example, if you want some personal loan from a bank, you go to the bank and they would ask you to submit your loan application. So what are all the steps in order to achieve or in order to get a loan from the bank? The first step in order to get a loan is application. So you will submit an application to the bank, and bank will analyze your application, whether all the details which you have filled in the application are proper or not. The next step which bank will do is they will determine your credit score. So they will calculate your credit score based on whatever you are putting on stake. For an example, you are giving a guarantee of some brand name, or you are giving a guarantee of your home, or you're giving your guarantee of your PF account. So bank will determine what is the guarantee you have put and what is the worth of that. Based on that, they will calculate the credit score. Now, in order to calculate the credit score, they will take in consideration lot of conditions, not just your personal condition. They will also consider the market situations. What is the interest rate in the market at that point of time? How is the central bank policy at that point of time while they're calculating the score for you? So all these things will be determined by bank while calculating the credit score for you, that how much loan they would like to give you out of what you have requested. Towards the end of the process, they will finally reject your application, or they will accept your application and release the fund to you. So let's say in this case we are considering acceptance. So they will finally release the loan and they will approve the process. The process gets over here. So this is the simple loan process. Whenever somebody would like to have some loan from the bank, this is the process bank will follow. They would accept an application, calculate your credit score, and do an approval or rejection and release the fund to you finally. Now, if you see here, there are three aspects of this application. First is the application itself, or I would say the software which you are using for this application. Don't be confused between this application and this application. This is the application by an applicant who needs a loan. This is the software. I'm talking about software application here. So the application here is banking. Coming to the next step what we have here is the process. So your process is actually the loan process. So your process is loan process, application is banking, and what is rule here is calculating the credit score. So these are all the three aspects of this entire process. Application is the banking application, process is the loan process, and calculate credit score is a business rule. Based on that, based on market condition, based on your financial condition, bank will determine how much loan they can approve for you. That's your business rule. Now, if we typically consider a business application, a software, when they design a software, how they used to do is, whenever you consider a software, a business software, there are three aspects of this software. Earlier, all these three aspects used to be combined together. What are all those three aspects? First is the business logic, or I would say first is data. Then you have the process, and then you have the rule. So earlier, all these three things used to be combined. The data which I need to process, the business process, what are all the steps I will have in the loan process. So this is entire thing is a process actually. Loan process is made up of three activities. That's your business process, set of activities, and the rule to determine the credit score. All these three things used to be part of your coding. You used to code for all these things. With the emergence of software industry, what people have decided is to separate this data from the process, because your application may change. Today it is a dialogue programming application. Tomorrow it may go to a WebIntro application, a web-based application. Next day it may go to a UI5 application. So people have separated out data with the process and rules with the next generation of software. So there now the data is separated out from the process. So then later on it became like this. So data is separated out from the process and rules. That was the next generation of software. Then now if you see, this rule is also part of your code. But based on market conditions, every day or every second this rule is changing. Let's say I'm in US, and there is something called Federal Bank which decides the monetary policy or taxes or the interest rates in the market. Now every day it is prone to change, or maybe after every quarter my rules by which I need to define the loan credit score are changing because of change in federal bank policies, because of change in interest rates, because of changing in market situations, because of changing in the people situation. Let's say there are different people, one coming from business background, one come from job background. So like that, there are different rules, and those rules are subjected to change on quarterly basis, on weekly basis, or monthly basis, or daily basis, or hourly basis. So there are business rules which are coded inside the application, which are subjected to change very frequently. That is the reason you need a BRMS system, business rules management system, which can change the rules of your business based on changing requirement. That is the reason in the year 2005 there was an emergence of business rules management system. So they separated out this rule layer also because it is very prone to change. So now it is isolated from your coding. You have removed it from the coding, all the rules, and you define separately these rules into something called another system called BRMS system, and your process will call the BRMS system every time. Now if you define your rule tomorrow based on market condition, if rule changes, you change that rule in BRMS system. Whenever a process is accessing the rule, it accesses the latest active version of that rule. Earlier it was part of your code, so it is difficult to change every day that coding. Let's say today your rule to calculate credit score changes, so you have to go and modify your code, which is very impractical. Every day you can't modify your code. Today the monetary policy says the tax is 2% and interest rate is 5%. Tomorrow monetary policy of bank changes and they say now the tax is 2.5% and interest rate is increased to 8%. In that case you have to again change your code. So that is the reason why we need a very robust mechanism which adapts to the changes happening in the industry. Now if you look at this entire process, the application is banking. The banking application is supposed to change over a period of 1 year or 6 months. The process is supposed to change over a period of 6 months or 3 months. Maybe a new thing comes, let's say, called verification process. So process is also very prone to change. It's quite difficult to change a process over a period. It is very rare that you will see a change in the process, the way loan process is working. That is also over a 6 months you probably would change. But rule is something which is very frequently changing to calculate the credit score. So if I draw a frequency diagram here for the application and rules, what I would see is a smart art. Yes. So let's say this is your banking application. So your application is changing over 1 year. So you have one version of application changing over 1 year. So you have, let's say, bank version 1, B1, and B2. And this release cycle of this is 1 year. After 1 year, your banking software will be updated. Your entire banking software will be coming into a new release altogether. But when it comes to the business process, that is more prone to change. For an example, you have a business process for loan. Today it is with 3 steps, tomorrow it comes with 4 steps. But that is also very rare to change. So you have, let's say, P1, step 1 for process. So process 1, process 2, process 3. So that is also that changes over 6 months period. But when it comes to rule within the same frequency of cycle, what would you see is rules are changing so frequently based on every day. So today you are using rule 1, tomorrow you are using R2, next day you are using R3, next day you are using R4, next day you are using R5. So these business rules within the same period of time changing very frequently. So your banking application changes over 1 year, but your process changes over, let's say, 6 months, but your rules are changing every day. So you need a robust mechanism. You cannot afford to change the code every day. You need a very robust mechanism which maintains your rule separately. And as and when you adopt your rule, your coding will automatically be adapted. So what we do is, with this process, we make a call to these rules. And these rules are defined in something called a BRMS, Business Rules Management System. So it's nothing but a system which is capable of managing all the business rules which are prone to change every day or every hour or every second. Because it is unaffordable to change the code every day based on changing requirement. In this example, specifically to change every day, the way we are calculating credit score is changing based on monetary policy of a bank or federal bank. Any question why we need to separate out the rules from a business logic and why we need a BRMS system? Any question, Geeta, till here? Have you understood why there is a rules framework required?
No, I understood that aspect, but I was just wondering if we have tables to maintain our percentages, wouldn't that help us?
No. Let's say you have a table to maintain the percentage. Currently, it is 2014.
Right.
It is it's 8th of July 2014. Now my rule changes after 1 hour. Will you go and change the table again? Just for only in this example, if you see, you can indeed maintain that percentage in the table. But let's see, there are bigger examples. There are a lot of factors which are changing every second. your monetary policy is changing, your interest rates are changing, how many tables you will modify,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
if you have a single rule maintained for this purpose, you can just modify that rule. And you can also keep track of version of that rule.
Oh, okay.
Versioning is also an important factor. You change the table data, you have to refer the technical table logs, database logs, what has changed. But if you maintain the rules in a separate system, the system itself will take care of versioning of these rules. Today it is rule 1, tomorrow it is rule 2. So it will tell you what has changed from rule 1 to rule 2. You can also roll back to the previous version. You can activate one version. You can maintain
So,
all the workbench
so this
capabilities.
BRMS system is available in our ECC, or it's like a
Yes.
special component?
So BRM is a general term which is used across all the business softwares, whether you see Oracle, PeopleSoft, Workday, Salesforce, SAP. It's a general term. Everybody will have a BRMS concept where they actually use it for maintaining the business rules. Now, specifically in terms of SAP, we call it as BRF or BRF Plus. Understood now? What is BRF Plus? BRF Plus is a BRMS system specific to SAP to maintain the business rules for SAP environment. That's what a BRF Plus is. So definition of BRF Plus pretty straightforward. It's a BRMS system which allows you to define, maintain and edit the rules specific to our businesses. We can keep track of version of the rules. We can keep track changing of rules. We can maintain in a central repository where everybody can have access to change it or define it. And it is purely, from the functional point of view. You don't need to know technical know-how in order to define a business rule. Because typically, rules is something specific to business. It is not specific to a developer. It is not coding. It is a business rule. Let's say I would like to give 10% extra discount on all the apparels during Christmas season to all my customers. It's a business rule. It is no more a coding. So even a functional person should be capable of defining this rule. Rather than being a technical person, you code it, hard-coded rules. It should be a thing which can change based on situations. I want to offer additional 5% discount on all the computer products when my exchange rate goes below $60 per rupees, or sorry, 60 rupees per dollar. I want to give additional 5% discount because I'm importing all the electronic products from outside India, and whenever currency rates are changing, my discount amount also can change. So there are lot of business rules in all the industries, medical industries, pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, banking, insurance, based on monetary policies, government rules and regulations, compliance rules and regulations, currency rate fluctuation, market fluctuations, situation in the current market, changes in the people's policy. There are different things which may affect it. A lot of things which may affect the business rule. So you need a robust mechanism which can take care of all these things. It's called Business Rules Management System. And specifically in terms of SAP, it's called BRF Plus. Now you may ask me what is BRF and what is BRF Plus. So the difference between BRF and BRF Plus is BRF is the old version of BRF Plus. It was purely dialogue based. You remember module pool programming in Core ABAP. It was developed using Core ABAP, module pool program, dialogue pros. But BRF Plus is the advanced version of BRF. It's a rule management framework system, which is advanced version, and it is WebDynPro based UI. It's a web based UI to maintain and design your rules. Okay, so that was your BRF Plus. It's an advanced version. So the whole story started in year 2005 when they wanted to design a system called FDT system. FDT stands for the FDT stands for formula and derivation tools. Formula and derivation tool project started where they understood the need of separating business rules from the code, because it is impractical to every day change the code or every day change the database tables for changing the policies and other things. So they started with FDT and then they came up with the first version, BRF, and later on it was migrated to BRF Plus and it has become a business rules management system for SAP. Now, what are all the steps in order to define a business rule as part of a business rules framework system? The steps are, you need to model the rule, then you need to redefine, automate, and manage. So what are all the steps? First is you need to model. So with a pen paper, you will note down, you will jolt down what is your business rule. You will define the overall requirement by business. That is called modeling. After the modeling process, you will go with the next step called define. So first step is model. Second is called define. Third is called automate. And fourth is called maintain. So that's your BRMS system does. It models the rule. It allows you to define the rules in a central repository. It executes the rule. So that is the runtime part of the rule. There should be someone who should be having capability to execute the rules. So it will execute the rules also. And then finally, you can maintain the rules. Tomorrow, if there is a business requirement changing, you need to change the rule definition also. So it's a complete end-to-end system which manages your rules. That's called BRMS system. Okay. Now, before we get into the BRMS system called BRF Plus for SAP, we need to understand some terminologies and object types which we need to create and develop as part of it. So I'll take a break for 2 minutes here. We'll come back and then we will start looking into the workbench, which is used to define the different types of objects. We'll understand what are all the entities as part of BRF. And I will at the end take a business example for achieving it. So let's take a break for 5 minutes and come back and we'll start. So now we will go to the system, SAP system, and see what exactly is that which is available in SAP system for this. The transaction code to start the BRF plus in the system is either BRF plus symbol. You can use this one. You can also type BRF PLUS plus. You can also use FDT underscore workbench. As I've told you in earlier discussion that FDT stands for formula and derivative tool. So this is what was the beginning of this. So that's why they have kept it as FDT workbench also. All these three transactions are used to start the BRF workbench to create a BRF application. So what we actually do is, as part of when we say we are working with BRF, we start with the development of a BRF application. So what is a BRF application? So it is just like, we have WebDynPro component which encapsulates other entity. So a BRF application a container for all the objects related to BRF. So whenever you want to define a business rules, you need to define lot of other entities, something called data objects. These are nothing but your variables. You will store the intermediate values in these variables. You will pass the value, you'll receive the value, you'll pass the values between functions, rule sets, all that is data objects. Variables. Then we have something called functions. Functions are nothing but entry point of VRF from SAP. You can define multiple data objects, multiple functions. Then we have something called expressions, which can be executed via a rule, or which can also be executed via directly through functions, expressions. And then we have something called rules and rule sets. So these are all the main entities which you will be working with when you will learning the BRF. And an application encapsulates all these entities. Now these entities can directly be created underneath an application, or they can be part of a catalog of an application. So inside an application, you just create a package kind of thing. That is called a catalog. Inside the catalog, you will create these entities, or directly you can create under the application also. So you can see our WebDinPro workbench for BRF is starting right here. So I just say login. And it will start the BRF workbench for us, where we can actually define our rules, business rules. So here there are a lot of entities. I will be explaining you about these entities in detail one by one. Now before we get into detail, we need to understand what are all the rules or what are all the authorization you must have to have in order to actually run this particular transaction. So you need to have couple of authorization in order to run this transaction. Let me put it across. You can't run this transaction if you don't have those authorizations. So in order to start the BRF workbench, you must have to have this role assigned to you, SAP BC FDT Administrator. This is the role which should be assigned to the user. So if you are the user who needs to be defined, you need to define some business rules in BRF, you must have to have this role assigned as part of your user SU01 transaction. If this role is not assigned, you cannot actually run it. Next is, in order to activate the BRF WebDinPro application, you need to have this SICF node in running state. These services, these are actually services for BRF. So these services should be active in SICF transactions. In SICF transaction, you will find these services. All these services should be active. Then only you can work with it. We can work with designing or creating the entities of BRF. Very important step. As a developer, we must know, let's say if a functional consultant comes to you, hey, I am unable to run the workbench for BRF, you need to tell that is this role assigned to you. If the role is not assigned, they will not be able to use it. So you need to tell them that they need to contact the basis people to assign this role to their user, so that then they can run the BRF. Or also yourself, if you are defining business rules, you must have to have these roles assigned. As a WebDinPro developer, usually what kind of requirement comes is we have already maintained business rules by functional people. We need to call the business rules from above code. That is what the requirement comes. Also, sometimes they want to integrate the existing BRF expressions like formula builder we have. So that formula builder you need to integrate with your WebDinPro applications. So all that I will be taking you throughout the course, explaining you all these things in details. So this is the bare minimum you must have to have, a user must have to have. So we will start with the data objects, functions, expressions, and rule sets. We will be creating all these entities in the complete full-fledged application I will be taking, considering an existing WebDinPro example. And we will enhance an existing WebIntro application by defining business rules. That also we will do. So let's start with individual entities first of all, and then we will get into detail of designing a full-fledged BRF application for our purpose. Okay, so this is the initial screen of BRF Workbench. What are all the entities as part of it? We have the topmost section over here as part of it called toolbar for BRF. On the left hand side, you have the navigation panel. On the right hand side, you have the main area where you will maintain your entire object and its properties. At the bottom, you have a status bar. Currently, there is no message, so there is no status bar displayed over here. So these are all main 4 components of a BRF Workbench. Now here you can create a new application. Now you can look into the application based on repository. You can look into a particular catalog. You can make it recently used, and also you can add an application to your favorites. These are all the 4 ways to access a BRF application. As I mentioned, a BRF application is a container which will contain data objects, expressions, functions, and rule sets. So the whole idea here is to design the rule for your business, which can be executed from your application code. We can invoke the business rules from our ABAP code here. All the rules will be centrally maintained here. You change the rules, they will automatically be reflected in the code, because from code we are calling here. The BRF plus system itself is responsible for executing the rules. You will just call from ABAP code these rules. Execution of the rule also will happen here itself within the BRF. So BRF Workbench is a medium by which we can define the rules. So let me create a brand new application. So I say create application. So a new application will be created for me. Under that, we will define all these objects like data objects, catalogs, and other things. So let me enter an application name. Say ZDemo first BRF app. That's my application name. Enter a short text, demo for BRF. Enter the text by which it will recognize my first BRF plus app. Now, a BRF application is an object, just like your data dictionary objects or a program or a class. You can define how this object will be treated, how it will be stored. Is it a master data or customizing or system? When you add system, what will happen is, when you add system and customizing, for both it will ask a transport request when you put it into a package. For master data, it will be created like a table entry, customizing table entry. For all three, a transport request will be created, but the kind of transport request which will be created is different. For master data, it will be a customizing request. Even for customizing, it will be a customizing request. For system, it will be a workbench request. So when you want to transport this particular BRF application to your quality system or production system, you must have to transport this application. If you will not transport this application, it will dump in the system. It will dump in the quality system or production system. So remember, when you assign it to a development package, you must have to transport it. Right now, I will create it as a local object. So I create it as a local application. Say create and navigate to object. So now a brand new BRF application will be created. It's just a container for all the entities. Great. So now we are at this screen where it has created a new application. Now you can click on the show more button to see the header data. For every BRF object, whether it is application, data object, expression, function, rules, rule set, or catalog, for everything you have this general section which is details. All these tabs are same for everything. Now what is so important here is this one. This is the ID of your application. It's a unique identifier of BRF object. For every entity which you create in DRF will be assigned a unique identifier. This is the ID of that application. Currently we have created application, so it's an ID of that application. Tomorrow you create a function, function will have an ID, unique ID for that function. For everything you have a unique identifier by which it is recognized throughout SAP system. So tomorrow, let's say if I want to, call from ABAP a business rule, I need to trigger a function from ABAP. So that time I would need this ID to know which is the function I want to call from ABAP. This is the unique identifier for that. Similarly, when you transport this application from this system to a quality or production system, what system does is system will transport this entry to the quality system. It's a unique identifier. It's a GUID, we call it GUID. Then other details like who has created, who has changed, when it got changed, what type of object it is, whether versioning is on or off, all these details are maintained here. Now coming to text. This is the text which we just created. What is the name by which it is recognized? It can be language dependent. You can also get the text from link to a data object. Let's say if I want to get a text from SE16, my documentation objects. From there also I can get it. If I want to get it from a data element, I can also get it. All that is possible. Documentation, you can maintain here the documentation about what is this object, what is the use of this. I can say this is my first WebBeam Pro application, DRF app, just for demo purpose. No productive use. Like this, I can maintain the documentation. Versions, if versioning is on, you can have multiple versions of same application. As I mentioned earlier, the difference between table rules and DRF, you can have multiple versions of a same application. These versioning can be tracked properly. You can have multiple versions. You can transport it, you can track it, you can roll it back. Everything is possible. That is not possible with table thing. You need to get into the deep of database, find out what has been changed, when it has been changed, when it's to roll back and all that. Additional information is just the system ID where it is created, which is the transport request and all. Let's go to less details. So this is my object. I click on save. You can see current state is inactive. So this application is inactive. I click on activate. Now you can see my application is active. This is just like a workbench program or a DDIC object. You must have to activate all these entities. Now, whenever we want to delete something, we can mark it obsolete. After 15 days, automatically it will be deleted. Sorry, it will be marked as obsolete. So you can't reuse it, can't use it in somewhere else, in other objects. To mark it obsolete. It is possible to roll back the obsolete, whatever is marked as obsolete. It's a soft delete actually. Mark as obsolete is a soft delete. Then coming to delete option, there are two options. One is mark for deletion. When you mark it for deletion, after 15 days, it will be automatically deleted from the system. And when you delete, it will be deleted immediately from the system. Nowhere else you can find an entry. Okay, these are all the two options here for an application. So that's about my toolbar. Now coming to properties, here there's some settings about application like application log, versioning data, and default language setting, in which language it is maintained. Then coming to contained objects, it will tell you what are all the objects which are part of this application. Let's say tomorrow I will create 10 functions and 20 data objects. It will show you all the entities right here into the depth. Okay. Then coming to miscellaneous, here we can say restart the rule set enabled. So we can defer the rule set execution for certain time. If you want to process some asynchronous process, in that case we can go with restart rule set enabled. For an example, my company decide that the commission for all my agents will change from March 1, 2013 Okay, from 1st of March 2015, from that date, all the rules will change. So I can choose this option, and from that date onwards, my rules will be redetermined, will be executed only after that. So you can defer the rule set execution by checking this flag. These are all the application level settings. Now you can add this application to your favorites. You can see, you can add it to favorites, and then once you go to favorites, you will be able to see this. Recently used will show you all the recently used applications, recently created. You can see this is what is recent. You can add the application to favorites. You can delete from favorites. All these are basic functionality. Okay. Now move on to the next part, which is nothing but data objects. So now we will see what is data objects, why they are used for. So data objects is nothing but variables of BRF applications. Let me note down what is data object. So data objects are nothing but used to determine the variables, or they are used to, they are variables of your applications. Mainly used for functions and rules. Mainly used by function expressions and rules. So you use type to define, let's say whether it is number type, currency type, unit, it's a digit, date, time, number, text, what type of data variable it is. Just the way we do in basic ABAP, all the variables can have types, type, length and size you can define for variables. They are also used, for defining import export parameters for a method. For that, we also use data objects. They are nothing but variables. There are three types of data objects. It's a single variable. Next, you have structure. The selection of fields. Next, you have tables. Just the way you have data dictionary data objects available in SE11, we have data objects available in VRF. So let me show you how to create a data object. Let me come here, right click here to the application. Click on create data object element. You can create elements together. You can create single element also. I'll show you all these options. So I'll say create an element. I can provide the name of this element, let's say global variable for airline. We can create a binding of this from a data dictionary element. Let's say I bind it with a s underscore char underscore id element. So now it is linked to a data element of database, data dictionary. So I say create and navigate to object. You can see again, show more details. Every object will have a unique identifier. You can see that in the general settings. Since it is defined at the application level, every object of this application can consume. It's a global variable actually. When you have the domain values, you can see all the domain values have been read out from database based on the F4 help. An additional property for this. So if the value which I enter does not exist in the domain values, it should show an error or warning. So I can choose that setting here. Okay. So I click on save and activate this data object. You can see now it is active. Similarly, I can create multiple data objects together also. Let me right click, create data objects, element mass creation. So I can create multiple data objects together. So you can say I want to create, let's say, text type, let's say GV, global variable underscore text. I want one as data element, DDIC element type. Reference is S underscore price, G underscore applied price. I can create an object type also. I can create reference of a class. So I can enter a reference of a class, object name here, the class name. That is also possible. Sorry, it is not a class reference. It is basically the reference from another variable. So if I want to create a variable with reference to another variable, I can use that. So you can see GV airline code. I have created a variable. Similar to that, I want to create this variable also. So I can enter GV airline code 1. It is similar to airline code. So like that, multiple elements can be created. Click on OK. All the elements are created. You can see they are inactive right now. Great. Let's save this. Let's see if I can activate all the objects together. No, I can't here. But yes, when I'll create a function and use these variables in functions, that time I can activate all this. Great. Now that is about my data objects. Let me show you creating a structured data object. Let me activate these data objects first of all. Great. Now I will show you creating a data object of structure type. So let's say structure. Now you can enter the structure name here. Let's say global structure GS flight. Create and navigate. Now in this structure we can directly use data dictionary binding from a database structure, or we can also add the data object types. So if I want to create a customized structure, I say add new data objects. So I can create new data objects here and add them. We can also do nesting of structures. Deep structures we can create here, or we can add from existing data objects. So you can see these are all the 4 data objects I've just created. I can add them and make a structure out of this. So all four things are part of my structure now. That's how I can create a structure, activate it. Now I'll show you creating a table. So I can create a table, right click, say create table. Enter the name, let's say GT flight. So right now I'm just showing you individual entities. I'm not creating any business example. I've not taken any business example so far. Just showing you creating individual entities and meaning of them. We will take a business example later point of time. Then we will learn all these entities individually and we are comfortable with each and every entity. That time I will take the business example. So now here I can choose the line type, click on not assigned. And select, choose select option. Now you already know that I have a structure here. I can also create a table using a variable. With a single column it will be created. So I use GS flight, you can see all the fields have come. So now it's a table type actually. It's a table. So these are all the data objects which I can create as part of BRF. Mainly used to store the values, intermediate values, importing, exporting values, all that can be used. Why this? Great. So that is about my data objects. Now move on to the next part, functions. Functions plays very important role as far as BRF Plus is concerned. Why they are very important? Because functions are the entry point of BRF application. So let's say you want to integrate BRF Plus in your project. What you do is you create functions. And these functions can be triggered from your WebDynPro or ABAP code. You cannot trigger directly a rule. You have to trigger a function from ABAP. So this is the point of contact between your BRF and ABAP code. So it's an entry point of your BRF application from ABAP. So you always execute functions. Now why they are functions? Function will always can return the value. So function can return the value. So what are all the characteristics of a function? So function will have input values. It can return the values. Okay. It can be called from ABAP code. There are three techniques by which you can call a function. First is directly via ABAP code using BRF APIs. I will show you what is BRF API. There are set of classes available to us. We can use those classes to create an object of application and then call function of an application from the methods. Next is we can use to call a function using a function module. And next is we can use to call a function module using web service. So these are all the three possibilities to call a BRF rule, to execute a BRF rule. Now, very important thing, function operates into three modes. First mode is called event mode. Using this, we can trigger a rule set. And a rule set is nothing but it's a collection of rules. That's called event mode. Next is called functional mode. This is the simplest form of calling a function. You don't need to attach it to a rule set. Directly call expression. Function can be directly called via expression. That's called functional mode. Next is called both. So you can have a mixture of this wherein you can also call expression as well as you can trigger a rule set. That's a mixture mode. Event mode is the most powerful mode, and most of the time maximum number of functions are operating in the event mode of BRF. So whenever you say BRF plus integration, you call a function from a barcode which is operating in the event mode. You can actually call a function from a bar which is operating in functional mode also, but most of the time it is in the event mode, because always we execute rule sets in order to execute a function. So let's create a function which is calling a rule set in event mode. Let me show you. I go to FDT Workbench, right click here, create a new function. I name the function. Let's say I want to create a simple function wherein I want to check if the incoming airline code is American Airlines. Just tell that it is an American airline. So I say FC. FC stands for function. Check airline. Create a navigative function. So you can here see the modes of execution of the function: functional mode, event mode, or function and event mode. Right now I will select functional mode. I don't want the event mode. So a function can, when you add it in the functional mode, you must have to define something called a top expression. So an expression will be executed whenever you create or execute a function in a functional mode. So here I will define an expression, very simple expression I will define. So before defining expression, I will define the signature of the function, import export parameters of the function. So what can become an import or export is whatever is available in the context of the function. So context of the function will define all the data objects which can be either imported or exported from the function. So I say add existing data objects. I want airline code also and GV text. These two are the context of my function. Two variables I want to somehow use is this part of it. Now I come here to result data object. I want to return the text. So I say result data object, select. GV text is the returning type of my variable. So it will return a GV text variable which is of type normal text. Now come back to the properties. Define the top expression. So whatever I've defined in the context, only that I can use in expression. I cannot use other than these two in my expressions. So I define an expression, I create an expression. There are a lot of expression types available in BRF. Lot of expression types. You can see these are all the expression types. You can call a function module, BRF connector. You can do a switch case statement. You can have a formula execution. You can have a decision table, decision tree. You can have a looping. You can have procedure call, random number generation, tree selection. Lot of expressions are available. So I would use a Boolean expression. I want to define a new expression called Boolean type. It's basically a if condition kind of stuff. The Boolean condition. Now I come here as name. Let's say is X, EX for expression, underscore check airline. Enter a short text, say check airline. I will show you the complex expression type in a short while, where I'll show you formula, decision tree, decision table, all that I will show you. Click on create and navigate. So it's a Boolean type expression. Click on save. Yes, I want to save the function before I navigate. Beautiful. So you can see a very small expression is created with if else condition. Now I can define my condition here. I would say if, define the first condition, create expression, name as check airline code. Click on create. An expression is created. Click on yes. So this is my condition. So now here I will define my condition. I can call a function module in the backend also for this. Let me directly define the expression over there. I will just delete it. I'll just show you to just show that whether we can call a function module from here or not. I go back to my expression. Check airline. I click on this. Let me delete it. I don't want this. Delete it. Let me come back. Oops, it's not deleting. So let me create another function. Maybe come here. I create another expression. Go to edit mode. Create check underscore airline. Create and navigate. Sorry, I have used the wrong type of expression actually. That is the reason it is not working. We are unable to define a if condition. Let me go back once again. Click on create an expression. Check airline. Now here I have to choose the correct type. So if I want to check a condition and return some value, I should use case statement. I use case one. And now I say create and navigate to this. Say yes. Yes. Great. So you can see this is my proper case statement. It's kind of a if condition. So result data object I can decide here. You can see the type, select result data object out of this case. So I want to return an object of type GV text. And I want to check my airline code. You can see it is showing me the function related context. If you remember in function context, we only put two parameters. Those two it is showing me. So I say when airline code, here is the condition. You can check the airline code value. Is American Airlines, then what should be the return value? I would say yes, it is from US of A. I'll say it's a change value, change the result also. So I will change the value of my variable and result. Otherwise, whatever be the case, select the object, search, GV text, direct value input. So otherwise return the GV text, no, it's not USA. So that's my simple example of expression which returns a value based on some comparison. So when my airline code is American Airlines, it is equals to AA, I will return this result. Otherwise, I will return this result. You can see it is purely functional. There is no coding as such. It is purely, in semantic form of rule. So this is actually your business rule. Expression is translated ultimately at the end of business rule here. So here I am saying my business rule is when the airline code is AA, send this is as the output, otherwise send this as the output. So you are not writing any code. And tomorrow something changes, you can change the business rule here. The result type is GV text, which we are assigning. Any question here? I click on save and activate my expression. So I have created a simple case condition as an expression. Attach that expression to my function. Check airline code. You can see it is attached here. I will check my function and activate my function also. Okay. Okay. In the context, I've defined my import parameters. There I've defined GV text. And here also I've defined the output as GV text. That's why it is giving me a warning that ID of the data object must be unique in signature. It's just a warning. Let's activate it. It got activated. So now we will test this function. So BRF also provides you a simulation tool. You can simulate the object. So you can see here is your start simulation button. You can actually test this function right here because as I mentioned, BRF plus not just maintain the rule, but it is also responsible for executing the rules. So click on start simulation. You can see it asking me the value of American Airlines, or sorry, a value of my airline code. I can enter any value. Let's say I enter Lufthansa or AF, Air France. And now I just say start the simulation. So I say run the simulation and show me the result. So now it will execute my function, which in turn calls my expression. In the expression, we have written the code and it returns you the value GV text. You can see it's not from USA. I come back. It's a very simple rule. Enter the correct data, American Airline AA. This time I choose next option where I want to also see what has been executed to debug purpose. So let's say something is going wrong, your business rule value is not coming properly. You need to come and debug the business rule. So you can simulate the rule and debug it from here, this option. So run simulation. You can see now it is showing you the simulation of business rule. So you pass the American Airline, the another value was blank. It come here, it evaluating the condition number 1. A is equals to A, whatever we passed match with the condition. When condition is met, and in the case condition got finished, and this is the text which was assigned. Final output was this. So using simulation mode, we can actually test the functions. It's very, very powerful, the simulation. Any questions? Calling directly function in functional mode. Now I will show you calling function in the event mode, where we will call a rule set. So let me do that. I'll create another function. So I will name it as check airline by rule set. Event mode. As I mentioned, what is the difference between event mode and normal mode? Functional mode. Functional mode directly triggers an expression, but event mode triggers a rule set of sequential rules it will trigger. Read and navigate to function. Now it is in the event mode. I will maintain the signature. What is the import values? I will just import the airline code. Select. So that's my airline code. And I will output the same value, GV text. So I will select GV text here. That's my returning value. Come to assign rule set. Here we will maintain our rule set. You can actually call multiple rule set when a function triggers. And each rule set is a combination of rules. Let me define what is rule set. So rule set is an interface between function and expression. Why would we need rule set? Because sometimes what you need to do is you need to write multiple line of sequences. You will evaluate something based on the result, you want to do something else. All these kind of things which you need to do, complex processing, complex branching and processing you have to do. For all such situations, we go with the event mode of execution where we create a rule set. Each rule set is a collection of rules. So let me define a rule set. So a rule set is collection of rules. Each rule set will have a header and body. Now what is the rule? Since a rule set is a collection of rules, what is the rule? Rule is also have header and body where we define expression to be called. Apart from that, you can also define the condition to start and condition to stop. So let's say if my after discount, my price itself becomes zero. I'm not making any profit in the flight ticket. So I want to cancel the rule execution. All that I can define. Also the validity period of the rule. Let's say this rule should only execute between this to this period. With the functional mode, it is not possible. Whenever you call function, it will always execute. There is no validity period there. But with the rule, you get a flexibility to actually define the validity period, between which date to which date it is valid. Only between that date it will be executed. Otherwise, it will not. So that's my define expression. So let me show you how to create a rule set and rules in that. So I come here and create a rule set. Say rule set 1. Create and navigate. Say yes, I want to navigate to the rule set. Great. So you can see the header data. There are two sections of a rule set. This is the header section of the rule set, and this is the body section of the rule set. In the body section, we will specify the rules to be executed, all the rules which you want to run. And in the header section, what we want is, we actually want to define the precondition and the return parameters, rule variables. So during processing, you may need lot of variables. All that we can define using this. Okay. That's my rule variable and rules. So let me erase the drawing. Now let me define the rule variables. Here you can see right now there are no variables defined in this rule. I will define some variables. I click on this button, this link, small link. I can add the variables of the rule here. So I say add a variable, select. So these rule variables can store intermediate results. Okay. So let me show you one case. I'll just search. I can have one variable. I can add more variables as part of my rule set. Basically, these are all my variables which I'm creating inside the rule set. So we should have a unique name. That's fine. We can also write expression to initialize our rule variables. If user does not pass the data, we can actually initialize our rule. So initialize the rule variable, you can further call a function. So function can initialize your rule variables. Let's say you want to initialize some data, you call a function module. So then you create a function module. In expression, you make a call to function module that gets you the data and initialize your rule variables. So right now, just created two variables. Now rule set will trigger if function event is processed. So here we define the event for the function. So whenever this function triggers, then the rule set gets executed. You can see now my rule set is associated to this function. So this rule set will trigger when my function is triggering. So it's telling you the function name here. So that's the start condition for my rule set. The rule set is enabled right now. I can hide the header details. I can also assign the precondition when the rule set should be executed. So that I can define here. Now I insert a rule inside this. create a rule. So first of all, every time you define a rule, it also has a precondition from which date to which date this rule is valid. That is the validity period of the rule. Then also you can have a condition here for the rule set. So let me do the same thing what we just did. I would say it should be valid from 1st of July to 31st of July. Description is rule to determine, to check the airline code. I can write the condition. I can say if my airline code is equals to or is between American Airlines to Japan Airlines, or let's say Air France, A to Air France, then perform an action. So what I will do is I will assign the value to the context. So rather than creating an action, we can assign the value. GV text should be assigned to yes, it passed. Else, I will assign same variable with no it is failed. Direct value input, no, it is failed. Very simple condition. We will see complex examples also. Right now, just understand the concept of rule. So that's my first rule. Click on OK. Great. So if airline is between American Airline to Air France, value should be changed to this as this. So it's a purely functional, no coding at all. I can assign more rules to it. I can assign an exit condition. So I can say other operations. Oh, sorry. Insert exit condition, create. So I can also insert an exit condition. There are a lot of expressions possible. Now after this, I can probably check some database values. If the value is not there in database table, exit from it. All that I can do it. So right now I just have one rule as part of my rule set. So that's my rule set, and this is one rule valid from this period to this period without any exit condition. Click on save, activate the code. Oops, there is a syntax error. Rule variable, this is not unique within the function context. ID of data object must be unique. GV airline code already exists in the context. Let me see. I think here it is. We have defined the rule variables. So there some problem is happening. Let me go back to rule set. So rule header. We have defined two variables within the rule. Already you have function variables available. This airline code is already available. So we should remove it from here. Let's go to edit mode. From here, I just delete this airline code. This one also. Already we have variables in the function available. We don't need the local variables as part of rule set. So I don't have any variable now. All the variables are coming from function context. Click on save. Do a check. It consisted now. Activate it. Now it is saying that do you also want to activate the rule set, rule and function, all three. I say okay, yes, please do it. All the entities are activated together this time. We can now go and test the function. So simulate this function. So I come to the function here and say simulate. So this time I've written a separate rule that the airline code belongs between American Airlines to Air France. This time I'll not choose just AA, I choose AC, Air Canada. So it should satisfy the condition. Let's execute the rule, sorry, function. Yes, it is passed. You can see your output. Close it. This time I simulate it in the debug mode. So let's say this time I pass Lufthansa Airlines. Show also result intermediate step and next. You can see the function started. The context of the function was LH. It came to the rule set. It start processing the first rule in the sequential order. This is my first rule. This is the condition evaluated. LH is not between AA and AF. Condition not fulfilled. When condition not fulfilled, change the value GV text to not it is failed. Rule to check the airline code is processed. Finally, it came back the result. So no, it's failed is the result. You can see on the top also. So we have seen all the entities today. How to create a data object, function, rule, rule set, expression. In tomorrow's class, I will show you more expression types, and then we will take a practical example to design a full-fledged application and integrate with the WebBeam Pro ABAP application. That we will see in tomorrow's class. And after that, I'll show you integrating a BRF formula builder with the WebBeam Pro application. All these things, what we're creating at design time, we can all create all this at runtime using coding. So BRF provides a lot of APIs. I will introduce you with the APIs, and we will see how we can call those APIs to create all these things dynamically. Any questions till now about the basic entities of BRF?
No, I'm clear here. Maybe I have to practice once.
Yeah, that is why I'm pausing here. I'm not going ahead because if you are new to it, there are a lot of things which we have learned today: expressions, rule set, functions, context, object, data objects, application, all these properties. So you need to practice one to see where the call is going from where to where, how the things are working. Also the simulation you must have to try to see.
Correct.
So please practice this. Tomorrow we will take a business example and try to call the function which we created here from ABAP code. So if you see here function, I go to more details, you'll see a unique function ID. This is the ID which I will be using to call this function from ABAP code. So we'll design a full-fledged application tomorrow.
Anubhav, actually I had one request. Tomorrow I have an